okay. It's okay. Kirsten and Steven back? But I wasn't sure if they were going to be here or not. I think they come back out there yesterday. Good morning.
Church family. Before we begin worship this morning, congratulations are in order for Dr. Jonathan Redding, who is our preacher this morning. He was married this past week to Aaron, and so as Pastor Engel would say, why don't you show him some love? Congratulations. Let us prepare for worship. Come, let us worship in unity and in love.
To a place where there are no foreigners.
To a place where all are welcome in God's house.
To a place where all are accepted.
To a place where love is the language of our faith.
To a place where there are no divisions.
To a place where we all are united.
Come, let us worship in unity and love.
For God dwells in each of us. Let us stand and let us sing.
Thank you.
peace of Christ is with you.
And also with you.
Let's take some time and greet and meet one another in that peace.
Well, good morning. Hi, how are you? Good morning.
Sacrifice of praise to the house of the Lord. We bring the sacrifice of praise into the house of the Lord. And we offer up to you the sacrifices of thanksgiving. And we offer up to you the sacrifices of we bring the sacrifice of praise into the house of the Lord. We bring sacrifice of praise into the house of the Lord. We offer up to you the sacrifices of thanksgiving, and we offer up to you the sacrifices of joy. Nothing for that? Can I get an amen? All right, we got a new one for you today. Let's stand and sing Ancient of Days. Here we go. Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto the Ancient of Days. From every nation, all of creation, bow before the Ancient of Days. Every tongue in heaven and earth shall declare your glory. Every knee shall bow at your throne. In worship you will be exalted, O God, and your kingdom shall not pass away, O Ancient of Days. Here we go. Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto the Ancient of Days. From every nation, all of creation will bow before the Ancient of Days. Every tongue in heaven and earth shall declare your glory. Every knee shall bow at your throne. In worship
1 through 3, and then 15 through 18. In the first year of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions in his head as he lay in bed. Then he wrote down the dream. I, Daniel, saw in my vision by night the 4 winds of heaven stirring up the great sea, and 4 great beasts came up out of the sea, different from one another. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was troubled within me, and the visions of my head terrified me. I approached one of the attendants to ask him the truth concerning all this. So he said that he would disclose to me the interpretation of the matter. As for these 4 great beasts, 4 kings shall arise out of the earth, but the holy ones of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, forever, and ever.
So, in case it isn't explicitly obvious, I'm not the Reverend Kirsty Eagle. Right? And as the son of a pastor, it's good for pastors to have days on Sunday where they can just rest. Because the reason that we meet on Sunday is because in the Bible it says on the 7th day God rested. And so sometimes pastors need rest. And sometimes my dad for 14 years refused to miss a Sunday. That's hard sometimes on him, on us. So I'm grateful to be here to share this pulpit, to share this time when Kirsty takes some time to do something very biblical in resting and recovery. And all that to say, let's talk about Daniel. Let's talk about a book that is very confusing. It's difficult to read. And if you know me at all, you know that that's why it's right up my alley. The fact it is hard to read. The fact it can be abrasive at times. The fact it can be very confusing. And you say, what is Daniel even doing? What does any of this mean? I love Daniel. I studied Daniel. I wrote my dissertation on the book of Daniel. If you ever have trouble falling asleep, email me and I'll send you a copy of it. And you can read it all you want. I guarantee you'll be sleeping like a baby after the end. But the question I think that Daniel compels us to consider today is this: what happens when we embrace the God of the now? What happens when we stop worrying and panicking over our future and start looking for how the living God, the God who lives and works, what that God is doing now? Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but now. And think about how great it would be if we could see the future. If we could only look beyond ourselves and see what will be, and see how things will be, and see what things would become. And I like to speak honestly and frankly. And I like to think that if I had that power, I would use it just for good. But whenever I see how much the Mega Millions lottery ticket is, I always say, can I have it for just like 5 minutes so I can buy one lottery ticket? And then we'll be good. After that, I don't need any more. Ancient people, like us, were obsessed with the future. They were obsessed with trying to figure out what was going to happen. And so today, I'm going to give you a crash course in the way that ancient peoples used to think about the future. There will be a test. Take notes. If you fail that test, then you are docked pay. I don't know. But there's one form of trying to see the future in the Bible that we're all familiar with, and that is prophecy. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, they are prophets. They practice prophecy. Well, there's 3 other types, and they all fall under an umbrella called divination. Okay? There's prophecy, which we know. There's dreams, which are very frequent throughout the Bible, right? Joseph, the story of Joseph, the way that he rises to power, the way that God uses him is not through force, not through some power or will or some miracle of healing. He can interpret dreams. And there's also 2 more. There's one that I want you to repeat it with me, and that word is haruspasi. All right, let's try on three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Haruspasi. Look at that. You are so good. I'm going to mark my grade book. You get full participation. But haruspasi is one that was so widespread, we have archaeological evidence that people used to do this. And what it was is seers, prophets, people that were considered intelligent and connected with the divine, they would examine animal livers. They would examine animal livers for inconsistencies, for swelling, for shrinking, anything like that. And they would use that to tell the future. They would use that to tell what was going to happen. And you say, Dr. Redding, that sounds absurd. But if you've ever been to the doctor, one of the things that the doctor checks for is the status of your liver. Because the liver, if the liver's inflamed, what does that mean about your body? If you have an inflamed liver, is your body doing good or bad? Doing bad. If there's something wrong with your liver, there's something wrong with your body. The liver's like the filtration system as well. They also used to examine animal entrails. They used to study whenever an animal would die for some reason out of nowhere. They would open it up and look at it and see what was going on. And some of you now may say, Dr. Redding, that sounds ridiculous, but we still do the same thing too. Who's ever heard the phrase, the canary in the coal mine? Yeah. It's not that bird can tell the future. It's that we know when that bird dies, we need to get out of there. Because if the air is toxic for that bird, it will become toxic for us. And for any of you who have cattle or grew up on a ranch, animals, anything like that, if your animals start dying, that's a warning sign. That's a warning sign the water's bad, the grass is bad, something is wrong. And there was also astrology. And many people still do astrology today with their horoscopes. I'm not going to ask you to grade your horoscope today. But if you did, know that you are practicing an ancient art, one would say, of looking at the stars and trying to discern what happened. Because, y'all, space is scary. Right? It's big, it's huge. We look up and we're like, what is all this? Imagine not knowing what an eclipse was. Think about that. Think about how terrifying that would be. Also think about the last time we had an eclipse a few years ago. Some people said it's the end of the world. God is going to come back during the eclipse. I'm like, no, that's not what's going to happen, but okay. The ancient people were obsessed with trying to know the future. It was one of the things that defined them, and it made them write things down. It made them write things down because they wanted to tell future generations. They wanted to tell future generations that if this thing happens, get ready for this. Or if X happens, get ready for Y. Prepare in this way. And Daniel is a book that's weird because Daniel falls under that umbrella. Daniel is a sort of like puzzle piece of different forms of divination. There's prophecy, there's dream interpretation in it, there's looking to the stars in it. And that's why there's so much strange imagery. And maybe the best way to think about Daniel, to consider Daniel and all its weirdness, is to read Daniel as a book that's about wondering. A book about wondering. A book about what will happen and why will it happen. Wondering how it will happen and when will these things happen. Because Daniel, like much of history, was written in a time of great conflict, great war. Israel was the Egyptian Empire and the Persian Empire. And they fought each other a lot. And so Israel, and the people of Israel were asking God, when will this war stop? Are we going to fight wars forever? Will that be the thing that defines us? When is this going to stop? When will it ever end? And Daniel, likes to tell strange stories. He likes to tell stories with strange images. But the fun part about Daniel, and the real part about Daniel, is perhaps its simplicity. It's the part that people neglect. It's the area of Daniel that they look over, because the way that Daniel's chapter 7 ends, it does not end with uncertainty. It does not end with everyone dying. It doesn't end with everything being destroyed. It says, the holy ones of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever. Daniel ends by saying God is going to win. God's going to win. God is going to win. The ending is already done. Don't worry about what's in between. Don't worry about the ending. The ending has already been prescribed. God is going to win, Daniel. And if you read the book of Revelation, which is the almost sibling text of Daniel in the New Testament, the same thing happens as well. Revelation is a book that is soaked in blood and death and war, and people read it and it scares them. But they neglect the ending. We neglect the ending, and the ending is that God is going to win. Don't look to the future, these books should be saying. Worry about the present, because the future is already done. And I think there's a powerful lesson in that, because we are a people who can be defined by worry. We worry about everything. We worry about our home, our health, our kids, our country, our churches, our friends, our families, our jobs. We worry about everything. But worrying does nothing. Worrying about something is about as effective as trying to solve algebra about chewing gum. And this is coming from a guy who worries a lot, right? I worry all the time. It's a miracle that I can sleep at night. But what good does worrying get us? I feel like that Daniel is saying we all have worry, but the ending is done. Don't neglect the future. Don't neglect the now by being so focused on the future that you miss what God is doing now, in the here and now. I mean, Daniel 7, the piece that was cut out of Daniel 7 in today's reading, is a story of 4 monsters that emerge from the chaotic sea. One is a lion with wings. The other is a bear with iron teeth. The other is a 4-headed leopard with 4 wings. And the other is a beast that is so inhuman, so unknown, that Daniel can't even describe it. And for centuries, people have been interpreting Daniel saying Daniel's talking about us. Of course Daniel's talking about us, people would say. Look at all the upheaval around us. Look at what this government's doing and that government's doing. Look at what this person is doing, what that person is doing, yada, 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 yada. The most recent example I can think of is in the 1980s. People in the 1980s thought that Daniel was talking about us, talking about the United States of America, and was trying to tell us what will happen and how God will intervene and shape the world and make the world, because they would read Daniel 7, and they would read the image of the bear with the iron teeth. What animal was associated with the Soviet Union at its peak? A bear. And the Soviet Union, its grip on the world was called a what curtain? An iron curtain. So people said, of course Daniel's talking about us. What else could it be talking about? The Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. Even before that, Martin Luther, the reformer, said that of course Daniel's talking about the Roman Catholic Church and all its sinful activities and all the things that it does wrong. How could you say it's anything else? He believed it so much in his Bible, he drew a little Pope hat on top of the 4th unknown beast and said, it's clearly the Pope. How could it not be the Pope? Well, guess who the Pope said the 4th beast was when the Pope found out what Martin Luther said? Said it was Martin Luther. And back before that, people did it, people still do it. We lose focus on the ending because we are so preoccupied with what could be. And so just as Daniel and so many others tried to predict the future and simply just could not, because y'all, we can't predict the future. We can't. We simply can't. They missed so much. We missed so much. We missed what God is doing now in worrying about what will be instead of what God is actually doing. So the question again is, what happens when we embrace the God of the now? What happens when we stop worrying and panicking over the future and start looking for how God is moving and working right here, right now? Well, when we embrace the God of the now, we embrace what God is doing now. We get to build that future together as the people of God. We get to fight and we get to change the constant instability. We get to fight off the worry. We get to embrace what is. We get to remember the people who came before us, and we get to create a future as the people of God together with God. Because if we do not embrace the God of the now, then we will have to deal with and live with becoming the people of the past. Because our history books scream out to us. Our future beckons us to make the right choice. Embrace the God of the now, or we will be doomed to be stuck as people of the past. Amen.
November 1st is All Saints' Day, a sometimes overlooked holy day in United Methodist congregations. It is not nearly as well known as the day before, All Hallows' Eve, better known as Halloween, but is far more important in the life of the church. John Wesley, founder of the Methodist movement, enjoyed and celebrated All Saints' Day. In a journal entry from November 1st, 1767, Wesley calls it a festival I truly love. On the same day, in 1788, he writes, I always find this a comfortable day. The following year, he calls it a day that I peculiarly love.
In that same spirit of love, we give you thanks, O God, for all the saints who ever worshiped you, whether in arbors or cathedrals, or wooden churches, or cement meeting houses. We give you thanks, O God, for hands lifted in praise, manicured hands, and hands stained with grease or soil, strong hands, and hands gnarled with age, holy hands. We thank you, God, for hard-working saints, whether hard-hatted or apron, blue-collar or three-piece suited. They left their mark for you, for us, for our children to come. Thank you for the sacrifices made by those who have gone before us. Bless the memories of your saints.
May we learn how to walk wisely from their examples of faith, dedication, worship, and love. Today, let us never forget Bill Cassini, Jerry Clapper, Diane Collister, Joe Dabbin, Reverend Bill Draper Finlaw, Boyd Fulmer,
Pat Morrissey,
Julie
Riggs, Mavis Fry, Althea Dietrich, Harold Dietrich, John Turner, Nathan Lane,
Let us pray. Today is a day we will always keep holy and sacred in our hearts. Today is a day we will always cherish and love, for we cherish the saints who have laid the foundation of a story of love, faith, dedication, and worship, who tells a story that reigns true and relevant for not just today, but for the way forward. We lift up the families today who continue to hold spaces in their hearts for those cherished loved ones that are forever etched in their hearts and minds. We are encouraged to continue to grow together in love and dedication with the examples that have been laid before us. We offer our hearts and financial gifts this morning as another contribution toward the efforts of what our saints have tirelessly worked for and lived for, to ensure that we continue to spread love and service to all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.